welcome. And this episode I wish to perhaps share more about my pain and suffering that I'm going through. And I thought it would be helpful to perhaps do some sort of self-inquiry of this, and perhaps use this as an example of something we can all do. And perhaps there may be similar pain that you're going through, and maybe this will help with that as well. So throughout other journal episodes I've mentioned my health and some of the challenges that occur on a daily basis. And I've mentioned how transparent life is, especially on the level of the mind. And for me, I like to look at life in there's certain areas of life we can perhaps categorize our outwardly life. So there may be an area or category of family, friends, job, relationship, these are the main areas. I'm sure we can list many others as well, but perhaps these are some of the core areas of our life. So perhaps we can use these 4 I've mentioned as an example. So there is a great deal of pain in each of these areas. Perhaps we can even say there's a pain body for each of these areas, or the pain body within me is made up of each of these mentioned categories. And perhaps part of the pain body is a story that gets triggered. And that sends me spiraling down into the pain body. So one of the areas recently that has come up is relationship. And more specifically, an intimate relationship. So when I think about this area, there's a question that arises, a fear, a very deep-seated fear. And the question could be, will I end up alone? Another question that could arise here is, will I ever find somebody? can even begin the self-inquiry here. And there's a key word mentioned of I. Will I end up alone? Will I find somebody? In the mind, these questions will bring up many emotions of fear, maybe anger that this hasn't happened, or anger from past experiences that involve regret, or what if is quite one of the favourite things the mind likes to do. And in the mind, there may be projections of 10 years' time, and I'm still alone, or I haven't found somebody, or time's running out. If I don't find somebody soon, then I never will. Or there is the thought that I have ended up alone, that my whole life it will always be this way. There is almost a certainty in that thought and emotion. And in that emotion there's heartbreak, there is grief for something that's not happened. But in the mind, past and future is happening now. The emotions of that is alive. The image of the past and future is moving, and it's alive, it's taking up energy. It's feeding thoughts and connecting to the pain body where it's churning up old pain, and it's almost like a storm is happening. And quickly you are in the middle of the storm, and there is no space. There is only pain and torment. So in that moment, the I in the question, will I be alone? Will I find somebody? That I in that is often identified as me in regards to the ego or the mental formation that the mind believes it to be. And there is simply the painful me in there. So that's been the recent experiences where there hasn't been any space, there's just been a stirring of the pain body, where these thoughts are believed to be a reality, and the story is going round and round. And it may stop for a couple of hours and then it comes back again. Maybe it stops for a day and it comes back again. And I'm being constantly triggered by this as well. If I'm outside and I see two people together, or if I'm watching a movie and there is some drama unfolding in a relationship, or there is affection being displayed, again it's a trigger and it churns up all of that pain that's been almost building inside of me for a long time. And so to look at this simplistically, I can sense there's a huge pain body when it comes to loneliness or lack of connection or relationships. And what's fed into that as well is the thought that I'm unwell in regards to my mental health, and this may be a reality as well. I can sense my almost deterioration of my mental health, and so that feeds into the thought that, you know, who's going to want to be with me? Somebody with no job, that's another area of life that feeds into, you know, almost feels like the pain body. Everything blends together. I mentioned the 4 categories, but they all interlink and they all feed each other. So in this respect, you know, dealing with a relationship, there may be pain with, I haven't got a job. And perhaps the image that I project of myself, or the image that I want to project to a potential person, is that of someone who is successful or has some stability, has some independence. And so that feeds into it as well, and the mental health of, and it all paints a very bleak picture of being alone or not having a relationship. And there are thoughts as well of, the longer I go of not being in a relationship, the harder it's going to be. Perhaps the more my emotional senses will atrophy. And so there's a great deal of fear there as well. And there are many other thoughts that come up in regards to this that, again, churns more fear. It feeds, the pain body, I guess, feeds on these thoughts and these emotions that are being manifested. And when it comes to a job, there's been mention of this in previous episodes, and I can sense that that's within my pain body as well. All of the failed attempts, all of the times where I've mentally tried to wrestle with thoughts and try to make it feel better. And there's been times when I've decided to go for this job or that job, and there's been almost an emotional high. There's been a relief, a release as well of, okay, I'm heading in this direction, I'm making some progress, and then it leads to a dead end again, and then I build myself up over time and think, okay, there's another opportunity here, or there's a certain type of job. I think, that will be great if I get that. That will really help my mental health, and perhaps that will give me confidence if I do decide to go on a dating website, and all of these thoughts, all of these emotions. And then again, there's a collapse when this doesn't work out. And perhaps this is added to the pain body as well for next time. The next time I get triggered, this will form part of the story. This perhaps will generate more thoughts, more pain. And there's the area of family as well, which perhaps it's best to keep that private in regards to details, but it's the same patterns. There's a pain body there, there's past experiences that come up, that get relived when the mind connects to the pain body, or the pain body connects to the mind, to the thoughts, and it generates more pain. And I keep mentioning that, there'll be an episode where there'll be more detail on the pain body, and perhaps this can be expanded on as well whenever I get to Eckhart's book called The New Earth, where I believe it's expanded upon. And for those new listeners, when I mention pain body, it's all of the unresolved emotional pain from the past. That's there. And it's almost a living entity inside of us, because it gets triggered, and then all of that pain comes up to the surface, and then it connects to the mind as well, and the thoughts you have are now coloured by all of this pain. So it's almost connecting to the thoughts, and it's maybe generating more pain as well. Another area for me has been mental health. I mentioned the deterioration of my mental health, and there's a sense of that unfolding as well. And there was a frightening feeling this morning, or perhaps it was last night, where there was almost a conviction that I'm just going to simply lose my faculties, that I'm going to slowly fade into that place of mental dysfunction, a permanent sense of mental dysfunction where I can't really communicate my feelings, or there's a sense of not being able to cope and manage myself anymore. And with this brought up suicidal thoughts as well, that don't often happen regularly, but when they do happen, there are thoughts there, perhaps of not wanting to die, but perhaps of not wanting to be here anymore, to be in this form, to be with these thoughts. But a couple of nights ago, there was a great deal of thoughts about ending life. And there were perhaps details added of how and where, and this is something that was concerning to me, because I've never gone into that depth of thought in regards to it. And so that's been some of the things I've been dealing with for, I guess you can call it years, but it feels like the last 6 months or so, it's been slowly bubbling up, getting more intense. And in this process of this pain body, of all of these areas of life that have got a great deal of pain behind them, stories, thoughts that have been recycled in my head over and over, that have gained strength, almost like the root of a tree, where those thoughts have gained a density to them. And all of this has been bubbling up. And as you can imagine, it's been very dysfunctional as well. Not only, which what most people go through, the pains of life in these areas of relationship, family, in their job, but also there's been the mental health, the great, the degrading of mental health, and there's been that aspect also. And these last couple of weeks, there's been just almost waves and waves of this pain body. And it almost feels like the last one lasted, days of just complete intensity. I was completely immersed in all of this pain, where there were thoughts of just giving up on everything, of just giving up trying. And that statement, it may sound shallow with just me saying it, because we can, as a listener, you may think, I've been through that many times. But when I mean giving up trying, there's almost a dimension, a depth to that, where it's not just words being said, it's just a complete, it's almost of an image of an animal who knows it's dying and who wants to, often, I think I read somewhere where animals, when they know or they sense they're dying, they often crawl somewhere. They may go away from their home or people or their owners and just hide somewhere. And there was, in this article, perhaps it was an article that said it wants to protect its owners, it wants to just die quietly somewhere hidden. And I felt like in that sense of pain that I was going through, that's what I wanted to do as well. Or it almost felt like that's happening. With the deterioration of my mental health, it feels like this is slowly happening. And there was thoughts, perhaps I just need to run away somewhere so no one has to deal with me. Or the fallout of what's happening. And these thoughts of, an animal passing away, and I could relate to that so much. I too wanted to curl up somewhere and just let myself go. There's nothing for me to fight for anymore. I've got no fight left in me. And so all of this is there. It's I can feel it. I can sense it, perhaps is a better word. The heaviness of it. And as I'm recording, I'm not in that pain at the moment. So at this moment I am present, but what was able to take me out of this pain body was a guided breathing meditation video I almost forced myself to watch. So late last night I was in a place of despair, and just before closing my laptop there was a recommended video on YouTube. I'm sure we've all been there before with the recommendations of whatever the algorithm throws up for us, and there was a video there by Thich Nhat Hanh, and in the title of the video it was something along the lines of how to be present when it feels unbearable. And last night I looked at that video and thought, that's something I need to watch. And I purposely left that video there, so I knew I couldn't watch it in that moment last night. It was late at night, I was tired, and it didn't feel like I was able to, but I left it open there. So in the morning it would be the first thing I see. And it was. In the morning, some of the pain had receded. And wouldn't say I was present. There was some sort of awareness there this morning, but I was still caught up in that pain body. So I watched that video, and Thich Nhat Hanh talked about, breathing, and how in the present moment there are healing elements, and healing can be found in the present moment. And that really spoke to me, because that's exactly what I was looking for, or I needed, or there was a small voice in me that was telling me not to give up, telling me that only I can help myself. And this linked up to what Tai said. I believe that's a name his followers have given him. And Tai said, healing can be found in the present moment. And this managed to pierce through my mind, where it wasn't just about conceptually saying, okay, I need to be present, that's where peace is, or I'm in my pain body and I need to get out of it. I need to be present somewhere where the pain is not there. And none of that seemed to, I didn't hear any of those pointings, but I did hear Tai's pointing. And after that short video, I immediately did a search for Thich Nhat Hanh breathing meditation, and a video came up, and I immediately looked at the time, and it said 36 minutes, and I was like, oh, that's too long. That's too long for the healing to happen. I can't watch this for 36 minutes, and I was a little bit despondent, and again something in me thought, okay, let's just put this video on and see what happens. Forget about the duration, and within the first 10 seconds I immediately felt the relief as I followed Tai's words of just breathing in the abdomen and being with the breath. And Tai said something about enjoying the feeling the breath is giving, the calmness of the in-breath and the ease of the out-breath, and almost like a flick of a switch, my body was tingling, and I could feel the healing take place. And I don't mean the healing in terms of everything is just suddenly going to be cured, but there was a healing happening, enough for the pain body to recede, enough for me to just be stable in the present moment, where I'm not trying to be there, or I'm not still fighting off thoughts. There was just simply the good feelings happening from the breath, and I was in the body. And that has continued throughout today. I have felt the lightness, and I have not had any painful thoughts that I've been very much in the last couple of weeks, and especially within the last few days. So I thought, in sharing this, perhaps this maybe there'll be some use to it in regards to perhaps your own life or your own pain. And perhaps there may be some correlation that you may be able to see in your life, that you may be able to think, oh, yes, a few days ago that was the pain body, or I was just identified with with my ego, or my mental self, my little me inside that is built around mental concepts, that there was no space there, and that's why I was in so much pain. And being in this pain body, in this storm of emotions, I didn't want to see or be around anybody. Even looking at somebody's face and interacting with them was just so painful. And again, I refer to, back to the animal, curling up to pass away in somewhere quiet and undisturbed, somewhere hidden. That's how I felt. I just wanted to hibernate or curl up somewhere and just allow myself to just go. But being in the real world, I had to deal with all of that pain, of the unbearableness of it. So this is just almost a taste of some of the pains of the last couple of weeks. Of course, I wouldn't be able to explain it fully in a way that can be fully felt or understood, as this is me, translating something that's untranslatable. And something I did a couple of weeks ago that I wanted to share with you is the notion of writing a letter to, if you want whether you want to use the word universe or God or the source or whatever your word or relationship is. For me, I chose the word universe, but I wrote a letter. I was in so much pain, and it felt like something that would help. And a few days ago, I wrote another. I guess you can call it a letter or communication. So I wrote another, and perhaps that's something I may continually do. It may be something to perhaps keep me anchored, or give me some sort of relief when I'm in a very bad way, when I'm very identified with all of my pain and amongst it all. And I wanted to share that idea with you to see if that's something that may also help. And I've decided I would like to share some of this letter. I won't share all of it, perhaps the first couple of paragraphs, just had the sense to read and to share. Dear Divine Universe, I am in a great deal of pain. Worries about the future plague me. I fear I will be alone and will miss out on a loving relationship. Especially since my mental health is deteriorating before my eyes. The sense that I will find someone or be capable of a relationship is fading. Yet my mind desires this even though I feel broken, unable to feel and make sense of my pain. Am I emotionally blocked? The paradox is that maybe connection and love in a relationship may help in healing my mind. Maybe not. So much pain has occurred, damage has happened. What is left for me to do on this earth? What use am I? I feel distant yet close to my emotions. I sense there is an unhealthy dysfunction there. Maybe this is all in my head. How can I measure my sanity? Only you know the state of my mind, body and soul. It doesn't make sense to ask for help, to ask for you to make things happen for me. I feel too broken to know anything anymore. So that's just an excerpt of the letter I wrote. So it almost feels like that the parameters of life are constantly changing, or that perhaps my mind's perception on life is constantly changing. Many years ago I could plan the next few weeks or the next 60 days with lots of things, or I'd be very stable in that. But gradually, as time has gone on, dysfunction has happened, where now I have to live my life just considering the next almost 10 minutes of life, or the next 5 minutes, when it's very intense. And you can imagine that. Well, it's hard to imagine how people live outside of that. If I was to use the word normal, or almost a common state of mind, it's impossible for me to imagine that, because I am in this space of mental dysfunction where only the next 5 minutes I can cope with. So it makes, again, keeping in touch with friends or making arrangements extremely challenging. And again, it affects every area, especially of the 4 I mentioned, about relationships and a job. And so it feels like it's all almost feeding itself. It's all almost interconnected. One area, there's a huge struggle there, it affects everything else. And all of that pain gets churned up again. So there's a great deal of uncertainty in my life at the moment of where I'm going to live, or more so of how I'm going to get through the next day. That's something I've generally have to put out of my mind when thoughts come up of how painful this moment is, or painful the day's been. And it's almost, when a thought comes up, thinking how are you going to get through, the rest of your life, or, have to come back to the present moment. And I have a few pointers I use for myself, such as, the only thing you have to manage is this moment, not the next 10 minutes or hour or day or weeks or the rest of your life. When, the mind goes into overdrive, it immediately paints a picture very quickly of, how am I going to get through the next years of my life, and it feeds that to you. And so that's one useful pointer I use, of just the only thing you have to manage, the only reality is this moment. The only moment where I have to be present or have to take care of is this moment. I don't have to be present for the rest of my life, or I don't have to deal with this for the rest of my life. It's just this moment. And just to jump back to, the pain body, or being in a low mood, or caught up in deep and painful thoughts. It seems like the thoughts stick like glue. They go round and round, and the mind tries to resolve it as well. It tries to make it better. That, there may be thoughts that you add on to the other thoughts that you try and think positively, or you think, perhaps it will be okay, or perhaps I can do this, and often that creates more pain for me. But such is the delusion that when you are in that pain, that I always try and use what's causing me pain to try and make things better. And it's almost like, if you're burning from something, you're trying to use perhaps something flammable to put out the fire. If something's burning, you're using more thoughts to put out the painful thoughts, and it simply doesn't work. Or at best it will give you some temporary relief until that comes up again. And in this pain, all of this space is missed. And in this pain body, in this pain, everything is so narrow that you forget that you're not this body and this mind. You're not, I guess in a sense, you're not a person. You are, at its essence, you are simply energy. Yes, you are limited in this form. You are in this body. You are experiencing this body, but you are so much more than this. And this complete vastness And often I like to think about the vastness of this universe. I almost mentally zoom out. Do you know those videos that zooms out from the Earth and then it zooms out? You see the solar system, and then quickly there's a galaxy, the Milky Way, and then you zoom out from that, and you zoom out from all of this vastness, and it continues to zoom out. It's almost hard to get your head around all of the space of the universe, and that's what we are part of. That's our fabric, ultimately. But when you are in the mind, everything all of that space is gone, and everything's constricted, and it's just me and my problems and my pain, and all of that energy is constricted, and everything seems so real and believed. Every negative thought or dark thought is believed and felt. And there is such a gap from being in that place to being in a state of presence, where you're connected to, the incredibly vast universe that's just flowing. And we are simply the witness of this play of energy. Again, it feels like each time I do an episode like this, where I try and articulate my struggles or my challenges, and perhaps try and make sense of them myself, as well as communicate them in this episode or in an episode, it almost feels like there's some cloudiness to it, or it's not quite clear. And I guess on one level, a lot of these things are quite complicated, or they're very difficult to explain, because we are not dealing with the mind. We're not dealing with form, with materialistic things. We are talking about something that can't be explained, where words cannot reach what we are talking about. But I hope somewhere in all of this there is some clarity there, there is maybe some understanding. And perhaps I'll be able to try and record more of this type of episode as well, especially when I'm in the pain body. At times when I'm in that place, it's very difficult to record, but I almost, in a sense, want to catch the pain body in the act and record and do a self-inquiry of who is it that's actually feeling this pain right now. And I mentioned that at the beginning of this episode, in regards of those two questions I was talking about, those two thoughts I had, will I always be alone? I think the question was something else, but this is something similar. And in that moment, that I was me, and it was believed that, and now I'm talking about the deep I, is what Eckhart refers to, the deep I, the I that is not thinking, the I that is free from the mind. It's watching the mind, but the mind can never reach that I. The I that is not interpreting and commenting and analysing. That I that is completely neutral. It's not trying to go this way or that way. It's just simply the stillness that is always there. The I that doesn't need anything. That is completely complete, satisfied. There's no desires with this I. And it's the I that can never not be the I. But in our mind there is the perception of it being covered up by our thoughts and our fears and our emotions. Okay, so I think it's a good idea to wrap up this episode. I've just checked the time and I don't know if I've broken my own record for episode length. So if you've hung in with me this far, then I'm very appreciative of sharing this moment with you as you've been listening. And perhaps before I end this episode, I'd like to maybe do a short reading of perhaps a recent post by Mooji. And that might be a good place to end it as well. So this is a recent post on Mooji's Instagram page. It's called mooji.official for any of you on Instagram who would like to follow. And this is the pointing of the post that he shared with us. What would you care to hold on to if the future can never be what you imagine? Which, incidentally, it never is. Don't we all know this, yet secretly refuse to admit it? Future is based on certain cherished ideas we have about what we wish and hope to experience. But life does not serve or grant such projections. God is not so unkind as to fulfill all our dreams, and for good reason. Life yields the food for every living thing to evolve. There is a great compassion and harmony in that, though few recognize it. One should trust this. If you are too intent on the fulfillment of your projections, you will never be happy, because life is not here to satisfy your person. The wise one, recognizing the fruitlessness of such pursuit, relaxes into a deep state of surrender and discovers the beautiful synchronicity with all that is. We must mature spiritually until this is our natural experience, the one without past, future, or even present, alone is timelessly happy. So thank you so much for joining me here today and for helping me, I would like to say, in this way as well, for me recording this and trying to make sense of things and my pain that I'm dealing with. I feel like you as a listener is helping me by being part of this as well. So I thank you. And as always, I wish you well in this one true moment that we're sharing together. And I will speak to you again very soon. If you have an urge to support this podcast, you're more than welcome to visit my Patreon page, and you can find the link in the description. This is a place where I explain a little bit more about these teachings and my purpose, and explain about sharing my journey and helping others. You can also share this podcast with others and review it as well on whichever platform you're listening on. These are two simple ways that will help others find and come across these recordings among the many podcasts out there. Thank you.